Okay, let's dive in. Donald Trump. I mean, where do you even start? He's been such a huge figure for, well, for decades now.
Absolutely. His journey. It's quite something. From New York real estate, then reality TV, and somehow ending up in the White House.
Exactly. It's this really extraordinary arc, and that's what we're digging into today. We've looked at his story, tried to piece together the key moments,
Right. From his early days, his upbringing, right through to, well, everything that's happened since he left office.
So the idea is to kind of pull out the main threads.
Mm-hmm.
What drove him? What were the big turning points? We want to give you a clear picture beyond just the daily news cycle.
It's about understanding the transformations, isn't it? How did the businessman become the TV star, become the president?
Yeah, and maybe what set the stage for all that. Let's go back to the beginning. Queens, New York City, 1946. That's where Donald John Trump was born.
Mm-hmm. Fourth of 5 kids. And his father, Fred Trump, he was already a successful developer.
But focused on middle-class housing, mostly Queens, Brooklyn, not Manhattan.
Not Manhattan, no. That seems to be a key point. Fred Trump built a solid business, very practical. Donald apparently learned a lot on the ground from him.
But the sources suggest young Donald was, let's say, energetic, confident, maybe a bit of a handful.
Oh, they sent him off to the New York Military Academy when he was 13.
For discipline, yeah.
Seems like it. And he apparently did well there. Academics, sports, leadership roles.
Then college Fordham first, then transferred to the Wharton School at Penn, graduated in '68, economics degree.
And even while he was in college, he was already involved in the family business. Elizabeth Trump and Son, it was called then.
But his sights were set higher, or at least differently. He wanted Manhattan, that high-stakes, high-profile world.
Totally different from his dad's approach. Fred was more cautious, stayed in the outer boroughs. Donald wanted the big leagues.
So after graduating, he joins full-time, but that vision clash must have been there from the start.
Definitely. And you see that when the company gets renamed in the 70s, the Trump Organization, that signals the shift. Focus on Manhattan. And that first big splash was the Commodore Hotel deal, right, near Grand Central.
Yeah, that was pivotal. It was run down, struggling. He saw the potential, transformed it into the Grand Hyatt Hotel.
That really announced his arrival, didn't it? Showed he could handle complex deals, navigate the city's politics, secure financing.
Tax abatements, partnerships.
Yeah.
He knew how to work the system, apparently.
And it established the Trump name in that very specific high-end Manhattan real estate scene.
Then came Trump Tower on Fifth Avenue, early 80s. That wasn't just a building.
No, that was pure branding. Luxury apartments, shops, his own incredibly lavish penthouse right there. It screamed success, his version of it anyway.
Bold, flashy. It became a symbol of him, really.
And that persona, he really cultivated it. The 80s saw him become a genuine celebrity.
And then the book, The Art of the Deal, huge bestseller.
Which really cemented that image, didn't it? The master negotiator, the ultimate winner. He was all over the media.
That book was, strategically brilliant for his image. It made his method seem accessible, almost like a blueprint.
Yeah, it presented a very specific narrative.
So the 80s. That was his big decade, right? Success, wealth, luxury. The empire was growing.
Expanding fast. Hotels, and then the big move into casinos in Atlantic City.
Right. Trump Plaza, Trump's Castle, the Taj Mahal, big bets. And an airline, too, briefly.
But all fueled by a lot of borrowing. Very significant debt.
Which seemed fine during the boom times, I guess. But then the economy turned. Early 90s.
Yeah, that slowdown hit real estate and those casinos really hard. And because his businesses were so leveraged.
It got ugly fast. Debt crisis. Reports of near personal bankruptcy around 91.
He had to sell assets, right?
Yeah.
The yacht, the airline. They were gone.
And the casino started facing trouble. The Taj Mahal filed for bankruptcy. other properties too.
That must have been a major blow to the image, the invincible dealmaker image.
For sure. His public profile definitely took a hit then.
Yeah.
But he didn't just fold.
No, he showed, well, resilience, tenacity. He fought back. Mid to late 90s, he was negotiating, restructuring deals.
And this is where the strategy shifts, it seems. Less about building everything himself, more about the name.
Exactly. He realized the power of the Trump brand, started licensing it out, putting his name on buildings and products developed by others.
A way to generate income with less personal risk, I suppose? Signifying luxury, ambition, that whole package.
It was a clever adaptation, really, leveraging the recognition he already had.
And then comes another pivot. Early 2000s. Entertainment.
The Apprentice, 2004. That was unexpected.
But huge. It turned him into this massive reality TV star. You're fired. It became, a national catchphrase.
It completely revitalized his public image, didn't it? Reached a whole new audience, framed him as this decisive, tough boss.
And he used that platform brilliantly, leveraged the show's success to launch all sorts of Trump-branded products.
So by the late 2000s, he'd really made a full comeback. Businesses were profitable again, the brand was strong, global recognition.
It's quite the recovery story, business-wise.
And it set the stage for, well, his next big ambition.
Politics. Which maybe wasn't totally out of the blue. He'd mentioned running for office before, hadn't he? Like decades earlier.
Yeah, there were hints, flirtations with the idea over the years. But around 2010, he started getting much more vocal about political issues.
And then, June 2015, that famous escalator ride down at Trump Tower, announcing his run for president.
A lot of people didn't take it seriously at first, right? A businessman, a TV star.
Right.
No actual political experience. Seemed like a long shot.
Definitely. But he leaned into that. Said, look, I'm not a politician. I'm a businessman, and that's what the country needs. He positioned himself as the outsider.
And the core message, make America great again.
That slogan really struck a chord with a lot of people.
It tapped into something, yeah. A feeling that things weren't right, a desire for change, maybe a return to something lost.
His main themes were immigration, trade deals, bringing jobs back, crime.
And his style was just different. A very bold, direct, emotional language. He wasn't afraid to attack opponents, the media.
Very confrontational. And his methods, too, Twitter, constantly. Big rallies, bypassing the usual media filters.
That direct line to supporters through social media and rallies was key. It built a very strong personal connection.
And somehow it worked. He steamrolled through the Republican primary, beat all these experienced politicians, got the nomination by mid-2016.
Which surprised almost everyone in the political establishment.
Then the general election against Hillary Clinton. Again, most polls, most experts predicted a Clinton win.
The expectation was pretty widespread, yeah.
But Trump stuck to his playbook. Those huge rallies, focusing on places maybe other candidates overlooked, promising to drain the swamp in Washington.
It was an incredibly intense campaign, very divisive, lots of controversies on both sides.
And then election night, November 8th, 2016, the shock. Donald Trump wins, becomes the 45th president.
The reactions were just night and day. Huge celebrations from his supporters, widespread protests and disbelief from others, a real polarization.
His inauguration, January 20th, 2017. He promised in his speech to give power back to the people, outlined this new vision, a real sense of disruption from day one.
And he acted on that disruption promise almost immediately. His lack of a conventional political background meant he wasn't bound by the usual norms.
Right, those early executive orders. On immigration, the border wall push, the travel ban affecting several Muslim-majority countries, and rolling back regulations.
Those caused instant controversy. Legal challenges flew thick and fast. It set the tone, really, fulfilling campaign promises, but also sparking major opposition.
The economy was a big focus, too. The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act passed in December 2017.
That was his signature legislative achievement. Big cuts, especially for corporations. Supporters said it would boost growth. Critics worried about the deficit and inequality.
And the economy did perform pretty well in its first 3 years. Growth, low unemployment, stock market gains.
True, but at the same time, the country felt increasingly divided. That polarization just seemed to deepen.
And his communication style didn't change. Twitter, every day. Praising allies, attacking critics, calling critical news fake news.
That direct channel remained central. It bypassed traditional media and kept his base energized, but it also fueled a lot of the animosity, I think.
Foreign policy saw some major shifts, too. Remember the meetings with Kim Jong-un?
Unprecedented, yeah. And pulling out of the Paris Climate Accord, the Iran nuclear deal, imposing new trade rules on China, the whole America First doctrine in action. It marked a real departure from decades of U.S. foreign policy, moving away from multilateralism.
Then 2020 hit, and everything changed with COVID-19.
A massive, unprecedented challenge, hospital strain, businesses shut down, everyone looking to the government, to the president, for guidance.
His handling of the pandemic became incredibly controversial, though. The messaging was often confusing, sometimes contradictory. He clashed publicly with his own health experts.
It was a defining crisis of his presidency, and the response drew a lot of criticism, both domestically and internationally.
And then, in May 2020, the killing of George Floyd.
Which sparked huge nationwide protests for racial justice, a real reckoning.
Trump's response was very much focused on law and order. He pushed for deploying federal forces in some cities, which was also highly controversial. It really heightened the tensions that summer.
Yeah, 2020 was just an incredibly turbulent year, all leading up to the election against Joe Biden.
The election held during the pandemic, so lots more mail-in voting.
And Biden won. November 3rd was election day, but it took a few days to call it.
But Trump immediately refused to concede, claimed the election was stolen, massive fraud.
Despite, well, no substantial evidence being found, numerous lawsuits were filed, but they overwhelmingly failed in court. State recounts confirmed Biden's win.
Yet he persisted, which led directly to the events of January 6, 2021.
That rally in Washington, D.C., where he spoke, the march to the Capitol afterward, and then the storming of the building by a mob of his supporters, trying to stop the certification of Biden's victory.
Just shocking scenes. Congress eventually did confirm the results later that day, but the damage was done.
It was a direct assault on a cornerstone of American democracy, the peaceful transfer of power.
He left the White House on January 20th, 2021. Notably, he chose not to attend President Biden's inauguration.
A break with long-standing tradition, and even after leaving office, the investigations, the public attention, it didn't stop.
No, far from it. He set up shop, essentially, at his Mar-a-Lago estate in Florida, and he stayed very active.
Speeches, rallies, endorsing candidates. He remains a hugely influential figure in the Republican Party. For many, he's still the leader of a political movement.
But he's also faced a barrage of legal issues since leaving office.
Multiple investigations into his efforts regarding the 2020 election, the January 6th events, his handling of classified documents found at Mar-a-Lago.
He was impeached for a second time, related to the Capitol riot, the only president ever impeached twice, though he was acquitted by the Senate again.
And then the legal troubles really escalated in 2022, 2023. Investigations in Georgia over alleged election interference, the classified documents probe,
leading to him becoming the first former U.S. president to face criminal indictments. He's been in and out of courtrooms as a defendant.
Which is just unprecedented territory, historically, legally, politically.
Yet his base of support seems largely unwavering. Many see these investigations as politically motivated, as he calls them, witch hunts.
That narrative resonates very strongly with his followers. It reinforces their view of him as an outsider fighting a corrupt system.
And despite all this, in November 2022, he announced he was running again for president in 2024. America's comeback begins now was the slogan, I think.
And almost immediately, he became the clear frontrunner for the Republican nomination, even with all the ongoing legal battles.
He also launched his own social media platform, Truth Social, after being banned from Twitter and Facebook post-January 6.
Giving him that direct communication channel back to his supporters, bypassing mainstream media.
So here we are. America is still incredibly divided about him, his legacy, the prospect of him returning to the White House.
The division seems as deep as ever, maybe deeper.
And those court appearances in early 2024, they became almost routine. He'd show up, then often give statements to the press outside.
Using the legal challenges almost as part of his campaign, framing himself as a victim of political persecution.
His stated reason for running again. He says he wants to finish the job he started in 2016, talking about immigration, jobs, taking on the deep state.
Positioning himself again as the only one who can fix what he describes as a broken system.
So looking back at this whole journey, it's just remarkable. Real estate developer, TV personality, president, and now maybe again. He's been a symbol of so many things change. Disruption, anger for some, hope for others.
His impact on America is just undeniable. Whatever you think of him, he's reshaped the political landscape, the media landscape, modern history, really.
And clearly the story isn't over yet, regardless of what happens in the election or the courts.
No, his place as a major transformative figure is secure, I think. The analysis of his rise and impact will go on for a very long time.
It really makes you think about the forces at play: ambition, media, public sentiment.
And the way leadership itself is perceived and enacted in the 21st century.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, here's something to chew on maybe. Thinking about everything we've discussed, his whole career from the start right up to now, what single characteristic do you think has been the most constant, the most defining element driving his really unique and often chaotic path?
That's a tough one. It forces you to look for the core thread through all those different phases, doesn't it?
Definitely food for thought. Thanks for joining us on this exploration. We hope it provided some useful context, and we encourage you to keep digging into this complex and ongoing story.